Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Nitai Gaur, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Baladev, Jaya Subhadra. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan. Jaya Radha Nilamadava, Radha Nilamadava Radhe. Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe Radha Damodara Radha. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gaura Pimanandi, Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa. Parivrajakachaja Stotra Satya Sri Simadhu's Divine Grace Srila Boy Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki. Prem se gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana ki. Sri Vrindavan Mathura Dhama ki. Sri Dwarka Dhama ki. Sri Jagannath Puri Dhama ki. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dhama ki. Sri Mayapur Chandraday Mandir ki. Gangamayi Jamunamayi ki. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki. Harinam Sankirtana ki. Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki. Transcendental Book Distribution ki. Jai Shri Sri Gauranitai ki. Jai Shri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki. Jai Shri Krishna Balaram ki. Jai Shri Giri Govardhana ki. Jai Shri Sri Radha Nilamadava ki. Jai Shri Sri Radha Damodara ki. Dainitai Gaura Pimanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Everyone will kindly fold your hands and repeat after me 2 short invocations. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. And the second mantra, you have to hear attentively, and then you can repeat nicely. Om Sri Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Sri Sarabhyai Namaha. Om Sri Surabhyai Namaha. Mukam karoti vasalam pangum langayate girim. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for coming to the temple and attending this presentation. This evening our topic will be in connection with something very important in our Vedic culture. It's something which is very much misunderstood in modern day society. Something that Srila Prabhupada spoke about quite extensively as well. And something that unless we as a society grasp the importance of this topic and learn to manifest and put into practice the various instructions given by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, then it will hamper, so to speak, the development or the future of our attempts to bring about some important changes in the world today. So I should mention what that topic is. The topic has to do with education. I'm sure some of you have heard Srila Prabhupada explain at different times how our movement is not simply a religious movement, isn't it? It is a movement, of course, based on philosophy, the highest philosophy, the most profound philosophy, but it is primarily an educational movement. It is simultaneously an educational movement and a cultural movement. We speak about Vedic culture, isn't it? Our Vedic culture is based on principles and systems which are very profound, which are very scientific, and which are actually not meant to be changed. There's a nice expression in India, I'm sure some of you have heard it before, how this life that we have as human beings is in itself education. Life is education, and education is life. That's a nice expression. It means that we don't only learn or study when we go to school, but our whole life, in the human form of life, is meant to become more and more educated. Educated in what? Well, that's one of the important factors. Because there's a lot of education going around in the world today. So many colleges, so many universities. Now we have distance education, online education, any kind of education you want is available. You just have to pay the price. And that's where the problem begins. Because actually education, as we will see in this presentation, one of the important features of education is that it is meant to be freely given. Traditionally, we were talking about this on the way from the airport also, traditionally Brahmanas would not accept salary, isn't it? They would freely, as soon as they would accept salary, actually a Brahmana is no more a qualified Brahmana. So education is meant to be free, freely given and freely received also. Students should not pay to receive an education. They will, at the end of their studies, naturally, they will want to give some dakshina, isn't it? Some small gift to express their gratitude actually for the teacher. So the specific topic that we'd like to present is what Srila Prabhupada coined as VARNASRAMA education. So maybe we can go to the first slide, which speaks about VARNASRAMA education. Or do I control this myself? Yeah. That's what this thing is about. Yeah. Okay, nobody told me. This is how you work it? This is my first time.
So what you do is you have to show it there.
Show it where? Show it there.
Yeah.
To you.
Then you point it to him.
Okay.
And then
He's actually the controller, right? I'm not the controller. Oh, every time I press on something?
yeah.
Yeah.
The arrow.
The arrow. Which, this one? Yeah, okay. Got it. Fast course, crash course. Thank you. Okay, so actually I'm controlling after all. So VARNASRAMA College, actually specifically curriculum. There are 5 basic, I want to speak about some, some basic principles or concepts, and especially those who are in the educational field, they should take a special note because they can apply this. And if we do apply and introduce these concepts, then we will begin to see a whole different realm in terms of what education is meant to be. There are 5 what is called principles in traditional, what we call traditional education. And they are known as the 5 Ds, the 5 Ds of education, beginning with definition. What is the definition of education? And we'll go through this in the slide a little bit later on. I'm just introducing the basic concept. Number 2, what is the disposition of both the teacher and the student? What kind of mentality they have, disposition. That's number 2. Number 3, what is the delivery of knowledge or delivery of education? How and where it is meant to be presented, and to whom? Delivery of knowledge. Number 4 rather, the design. Design specifically of curriculum. We'll be covering some of this in this presentation. So that's definition, disposition, delivery, design, and number 5 is destination. What is the goal? The objective in the realm of education. So, in many places, Srila Prabhupada speaks about this, and actually we have a number. I should maybe give a little bit of background here. Background means, in India, we have established, the leaders in India have established a ministry in the year 2009, so that's like 7 years ago, soon to be 8, that is now known as the ISKCON Daiva VARNASRAMA Ministry for India. It's a national ministry for India. And naturally, education is a very major topic, because within that ministry we have been presenting courses connected with education. We have been introducing VARNASRAMA colleges in India. We have very few, unfortunately, so far. We have also published some books in connection with education, and we have made some videos as well. These are available actually on a website that we have, and possibly at the end of this presentation the website address will be there. In any event, one of the objectives of the ministry is to introduce these traditional concepts and to emphasize the need for what is called traditional education as opposed to modern education. We'll be covering some of this as we go through this PowerPoint. So actually this presentation here is part of we have a, because this year is very special, it is a Golden Jubilee of ISKCON, isn't it? The poster is there, a banner. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary, so our ministry is presenting PowerPoints every week. And this is one of the PowerPoints actually on our website. We have two websites actually. So this, for example, this particular PowerPoint was number 33 out of 54, right? It's back here and also there and here. It's all over the place. All pervading, okay, like Krishna. So this is what I was mentioning a few minutes ago. We have our head office in Sri Mayapur and the Chakra building. So Prabhupada explains that in human society, therefore, the Brahminical culture, Kshatriya culture, and Vaishya culture must be maintained, and people should be taught how to be satisfied with only what they need. Actually, this is part of education also. You know, everything actually, that's what we were mentioning a little earlier. Life is education, you know. How to deal with everyday circumstances, how to deal and relate to Mother Nature, the resources of nature, etc. So one of the important principles, as mentioned here by Srila Prabhupada, is that when we have basic knowledge, which is the beginning of education, about life, that means that we minimize our material necessities. We learn to be satisfied with whatever Krishna arranges, because our main focus is self-realization. Our main focus is not, as it is in modern day society, to increase our material well-being, thinking that we will be happy and satisfied in this way. So this was the mandate actually of, or is the mandate of the ministry, but we'll go over this very quickly because we want to go directly. I will mention a few of the important instructions given by Srila Prabhupada. See, before we understand about education, we need some philosophical understanding about some concepts. So that's why in the second, number 2, for example, important for us to know that what is Sva-Dharma, and important to know that we have 2 Sva-Dharmas. We'll explain that. Also important to understand about ISKCON'S, what we call 4 movements, and then why traditional education is needed. We just covered briefly, but we'll go a little bit more into details about the 5 pillars of education that I just mentioned, And we get into education when we start speaking about what is called Char Vidya, or the 4 Vidyas, the 4 sciences. There are 4 basic sciences. Actually, our Vedic culture is very wonderful because everything is simplified. Everything is simplified and can be summarized in some basic concepts. And when we understand, when we capture these basic concepts, then everything else naturally follows. Yeah, in this way, our life is. And then we're going to touch about, because I was requested actually to speak about education as it pertains to both city folks, like all of you here, most of you, and also as it pertains to villages or rural, because there's a need to for both of those. Okay. And practical application, let's see. So, this town life, industrial life, factory life is asuric. Don't mind, I'm just quoting Prabhupada here. It is killing human ambition. It is killing civilization. So this is in connection with one very fundamental and basic principle. And this is also part of education. How, in order to more easily, more quickly reach our goal in life, our lifestyle, how we mold our lifestyle will either facilitate or make our goal less achievable or more difficult to achieve. So the point being made here actually is that Vedic culture especially advocates an agrarian lifestyle. We'll come back to that later on, but it's actually a very important point that Prabhupada speaks about. And then Prabhupada continues, and to save this human civilization, these 2 classes are required urgently. These 2 classes means the Brahminical class and the Kshatriya class. So Prabhupada is speaking to his disciples in America. Therefore, you American boys and girls, you should, right here in North America, and here we are, Seattle is in North America, should endeavor to establish these 2 classes who will be able to give proper direction to society. Another important quote, therefore the VARNASRAMA College, see, what date? 1974. The VARNASRAMA College has to be established immediately. 1974. Where are the VARNASRAMA colleges? Everywhere. Wherever we have got our center, a VARNASRAMA college should be established to train 4 divisions. 1 class, Brahmana, 1 class, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Unless in the human society the VARNASRAMA system is introduced, no scheme or social order, health order, or any order, political order, will be successful. So this presentation is going to elaborate a little bit about what is meant to be, let's say, VARNASRAMA College. Before getting into those details, we must know about these 2 Sva-Dharmas. There's one verse in the Bhagavatam that Prabhupada very often he quotes, Nate vidu swartagatim I Vishnu. Nate vidu. People do not know what is our real goal or destination in life. People are not knowing that the real goal is actually to be connected with Vishnu, means self-realization. Now, this is connected, of course, with the concept of Sva-Dharma. What is Sva-Dharma? There's Dharma on the material level that is called Varnasrama Dharma. And Prabhupada explains as follows: on the bodily plane, Sva-Dharma is called Varnasrama Dharma, or man's stepping stone for spiritual understanding. Human civilization begins from the stage of Varnasrama Dharma. Very important. And then, so stepping stone, that means that there's something higher. And that something higher is the spiritual norm of Bhagavat Dharma. And this Bhagavat Dharma, Prabhupada explains, so real Sva-Dharma is spiritual Sva-Dharma. And what is the occupation of that Sva-Dharma? Jiver Swarup Hoy, Krishna Nityadas. That is spiritual Sva-Dharma. And a very important, okay, it's a little bit later on. Basically, Prabhupada explains that these two actually need to go hand in hand. We can't have just one and neglect the other, isn't it? Now this, I won't get into this very much. I put it into this slide because that's also something in the context of Sva-Dharma. Prabhupada spoke about 4 divisions or 4 movements within our ISKCON society. The first 3 are mentioned here. Sankirtan movement, temple worship movement, spiritual initiation movement, and the 4th one is classless society movement, as it has to do with Varnasrama Dharma, and that is our material Sva-Dharma. So we see the presence of these 2. We have more detailed information on that in other presentations, just to give a quick view on that. This is the quote that's important. Spiritual existence of devotional activities and classless society, means Varnasrama Dharma, are 2 identical terms. The one without the other has no meaning. Because when Prabhupada speaks about Varnasrama Dharma, when our acharyas like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, also Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur speak about Varnasrama Dharma, they speak in terms of Daiva Varnasrama. And Daiva Varnasrama is that social system or arrangement because it is connected with the divine, because it is connected with Krishna, because all the members are focused on devotional service, therefore it is no longer a material activity, isn't it? So anything that we dovetail in the service of Krishna takes on a spiritual dimension. That is what is wonderful about this process. Just like Prabhupada would say, our temples are not in this world. Our temples are in the spiritual world. Our temples are a manifestation, so to speak, of the spiritual world. So whenever we connect with Krishna, those activities, whatever they may be, become spiritualized, isn't it? Yeah. So let's continue. The primary goal, the ultimate goal, primary goal is, of course, spiritual Sva-Dharma of devotional service. So developing our bhakti or devotion to Krishna. And the secondary goal is the material Sva-Dharma, or the natural, social, Varna, and spiritual ASRAMA division. And as Prabhupada mentioned a little earlier, in a few slides before this, the material Sva-Dharma is meant to be like a stepping stone, is meant to help us more easily practice our spiritual Sva-Dharma. And we will see the connection very clearly when we start to elaborate a little bit more about education here. The training and education we impart to our children will mold their future lifestyle. Traditional education is therefore needed to maintain, protect, and nourish our traditional culture. I touched on this point here, which is number 5 of the presentation, agrarian versus urban-based culture. Modern day society all over the world, with America leading, is promoting an urban-based culture. Governments around the world are increasing, encouraging, promoting more and more urbanization, isn't it? But the Vedic culture actually promotes, we could say, the opposite, in that the Vedic culture is based on simple living, connected with the land, connected with the cows, and connected with Krishna. These 3 things. We can more easily harmonize our interaction with land, with cows, and with Krishna when we are in a more natural, simple setting, such as country. You see, that's why the Vedic culture is advocating village life. Live village life, simple life, and be satisfied with the bare necessities. This is Prabhupada speaking. There's a second small paragraph and the reference in a few seconds. There is no need of luxury, and save time and chant Hare Krishna. This is ideal life. So I am very pleased that you are doing that, and do it more nicely so that others may be attracted. Okay, there's no second paragraph. This was in 1976, spoken at Gita Nagari. Again, there are 2 schools of thought. This is from Gandhiji. There are 2 schools of thought current in the world. One wants to divide the world into cities and the other into villages. Yes. The village civilization and the city civilization are totally different things. One depends on machinery and industrialization, and the other on handicrafts. And we'll see a little bit later on how handicrafts are related to what is called traditional arts and sciences. Traditional arts and sciences, which we're losing in our present day setup. Why traditional education is needed. Traditional education can best teach the full meaning of material Sva-Dharma and spiritual Sva-Dharma. And both Varnasrama Dharma and Bhagavad Dharma represent, this is important, 2 standard sciences of sustainable natural systems. An extremely important concept that, Shastra, Vedic Shastra in particular, there are many kinds of Shastra, but our Vedic literatures especially are having, we could say, hidden formulas, hidden systems that are, because they're given by Krishna, they are perfect, they are complete, they are most scientific. And when we deviate or forget about these principles, then we we fall on the mental platform and we introduce all kinds of unhealthy practices, lifestyles, etc. Srila Prabhupada has given a standard order to introduce the systems of traditional Gurukula and Varnasrama college. These are the 2 educational systems that Prabhupada spoke about many years ago, introducing Gurukul and Varnasrama college. They're interconnected. Prabhupada said Gurukul is for the younger children, for the younger boys, while Varnasrama college is for the elderly. Varnasrama education. What is Varnasrama? It refers to the social and educational system of Varna and Asrama as a self-contained educational institution. This is something very important. If we had that system in place properly, that system in many ways is in itself an educational system. Why? Because the vast majority of people within the ideal system of VARNASRAMA, they are constantly receiving an education. Mostly they are receiving what is called non-formal and informal education, because there are 3 levels of education. The first is called formal education. Second is called non-formal education. And the third is informal education. So when we begin to understand this, we will see how the vast majority of students actually don't need to attend formal school. This is one of the major problems in modern day society because of the setup that we have. This should not be misunderstood that one should not attend or receive education, but majority of people are meant to receive what is called non-formal education, for which one does not need to go and sit in classroom. You see. What is Varna? There's 2 things, Varna education and ASRAMA education. This is the standard educational system that is presented in our Vedic culture. Varna education, try and follow this attentively. Varna education is based on aptitude-based learning, according to one's nature, aptitude, which leads to aptitude-based occupation. So it's very logic, isn't it? According to our nature, according to aptitude, according to our desire, to our interest, we should take up a particular education. And we cannot always immediately understand what we say, Varna. Many times in our society, people, they will say, Maharaj, what is my Varna? How can I understand what is my Varna? It's like asking, who am I? You know. And actually, nowadays, it's very difficult for most people to understand what is a Varna, because we're not living in a natural way. And also, majority of people don't know what is the scientific way to understand one's Varna. There are 4 ways that one can understand one's Varna. And those are given in the very nice essay given by Prabhupada called Gita Nagari. Gita Nagari is an essay written way back in 1956, and Prabhupada delineates the 4 ways to understand one's Varna. First of all, normally that is told by one who is a Brahmana. Let's say in a village setting, a Brahmana will be able to tell usually between the age of 8 and 12. At a young age, one's Varna is understood. And accordingly, one is directed toward a particular kind of education. So one of the first ways to understand a Varna is by doing astrological chart, by astrology. Just like we use astrology in so many ways to determine the compatibility between prospective husband and wife, isn't it? And there's so many ways or times that astrology is used. So that's number 1, astrology. And then studying the family lineage. That's why I was asking, who is your grandfather? We should all know who our father is, our grandfather, and our great-great-grandfather. This will help us understand who we are, actually. So that's the second. Number 3, Prabhupada explains, by administrating a psychological test, by testing someone psychologically. And number 4, by simple observation, by seeing how one behaves. You know, if somebody is wild, then he's generally not a Brahmana. You know, Brahmanas are peaceful, quiet, you know. They like to be by themselves and like that. someone is in the mode of passion, he can't sit more than 3 seconds in one place. He has to move, etc. So this is very important. Varna education, when we live in a more natural environment, natural setting, and when we are fortunate to have qualified brahmanas who can help us, who can direct and instruct us in so many ways, they will be able to determine what is our varna in this way, and then accordingly direct us towards either formal education or non-formal education. So formal education, just to elaborate a little bit on this, formal education means for many, many years one will study very deep subject matters. Modern day education, you know, traditionally up until the time I received my education, well, it goes back a few years now, but we had in most colleges and universities a lot more emphasis on what is called the humanities. Humanities means philosophy, literature. These were standard, you know, courses. Nowadays we're mostly into technology, isn't it? Yeah. Forget about philosophy, forget about all these things. It's minimized or not at all existing. So formal education means generally those who will study for many years and subject matters that are not so easy. You know, one has to be having very good brain, good intelligence. So it's like, you know, how many people get a PhD? Normally it's, you know, a small percentage of the population. So, so it means that actually the majority of people, that's what we were explaining a few minutes ago, are not actually meant to go to formal school or formal education, but they're meant to receive, non-formal means actually apprenticeship, learning different skills, you see. But not computer skills. But that is what is happening today. What is ASRAM education? ASRAM education teaches phased lifelong learning from brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas for gradual awakening of consciousness to self-realization, which culminates, of course, in Krishna consciousness. So Varna and Ashram education are meant to be the norm and standard in society. When that is in place, then so much of education naturally, automatically goes on. Traditionally, they used to have what is called forest universities. Universities were in the forest. Yeah, because the sadhus would be living in the forest. The sages were in the forest. Hare Krishna. And therefore, one who wanted higher knowledge would go to the forest. Yeah. Now our forests are no longer there, and our sadhus are also no longer there. So this is what I was mentioning a little while back, and these are the references to the 5 pillars of education. Definition, Bhagavad Gita 7.2. Disposition, Bhagavad Gita for the teacher, 1843. The 9 qualities of a Brahmana, and then 434, the 3 qualities needed for a student. Delivery of knowledge, I mentioned briefly. It should be a boarding setting, and the education also should be free. Design, our curriculum should be based on our Shastra primarily. Because within our Shastra we have both the division of Shruti and Smriti. Shruti is especially dealing with spiritual, transcendental subject matters, whereas within Smriti there are various material sciences that are revealed, that are taught, and so the combination of these two is what our curriculum should be based on. And then of course 1864 and 66 is the goal, ultimate goal, which is ultimately to surrender to Krishna. Yes. Now this is something very important that anyone who's a leader in society should know about. A leader means different kinds of leaders are there. We'll go through this in a few seconds also. This is from the Kautilya Arthashastra. And 4 Vidyas are also translated as the 4 sciences of traditional education. And again, once we understand these things, then our life becomes more simplified. The first is called the science of philosophy. So that's what I was trying to tell a little earlier. That first we need to understand need to have some basic knowledge about, where am I, who am I, where am I going, So philosophy helps us to understand these things. And philosophy is for the next 3 divisions in society especially. The Brahmanas, they will study what is called the science of the Vedas. And we'll explain what is the science of the Vedas. We'll go through each of these. What is the science of philosophy is broken into 3. What is the science of the Vedas? It is broken into 14. Then number 3, what is the science of politics? Because politics is a science. Krishna is the greatest politician, right? Yeah. So there is, of course, bad politics. We don't teach bad politics. We teach good politics. Politics are the science of the Kshatriyas. No one can be a leader unless one knows the science of politics. That is there in our Shastra. And the last one, which is of interest for everyone nowadays, more so than ever before, the science of economics. Money. But of course in a Vedic culture it's not money as we know it today, but it is economy. Economy is something very important, and this is, in other words, connected with these 3 natural leaders. These are the 3 natural leaders in society. The Brahmanas, because a Brahmana, because of his knowledge, because he's cultivating knowledge, he's independent. He depends basically on Krishna. And everyone else actually depend on the Brahmana to receive proper knowledge and understanding, training, education, isn't it? So Brahmana is independent. Kshatriya is also independent because of his various abilities, because of his wealth. Kshatriyas by nature, they are resourceful, so they can, they have all kinds of facilities, and people generally surrender to someone who's very powerful, isn't it? So Kshatriyas are also independent. Vaishyas are also independent. Vaishyas are independent because they know how to make money. They know how to cultivate the land. They know how to trade, etc. All these things. And if we look at society, if one is not in the category of Brahmana, if one is not in the category of Kshatriya and Vaishya, it means that he must depend on one of these 3. Ultimately, we depend on all of them, but that's why in our Shastra, Srila Prabhupada explains how, a majority of people actually are depending on these 3 kinds of leaders within society. It's just when we live a more natural, not artificial as we're doing, these things naturally come out. Who's a Brahmana, it comes out. Who's a Kshatriya, it comes out. Now it's like mixed and confusing, it's difficult. What is the science of philosophy? Of course, in our Vaishnav understanding, the 4 main books of knowledge Prabhupada has given us, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Nectar Devotion, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and all the other books from our acharyas. Now, the science of philosophy is focused on 3 things. Number 1, Sankhya, which is summarized in Srimad Bhagavatam. Number 2, Yoga, which is summarized in the Bhagavad Gita. And number 3, Lokayata, which means Nyaya Shastra, or the science of logic and debate. So this makes up what is called the science of philosophy. You know, so in our different temples, we are, of course, you know, focusing especially on the first two, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So that's why anyone within our ISKCON society who is a little bit interested will know, you know, the basic philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Now, the science of the Vedas, which is meant for Brahmanas, that's a little small. I didn't have time to make that into. Anyways, it's called Chaturdasa Vidya. Chaturdasa Vidya means 14 standard books of knowledge. And these are summarized as follows: the 4 Vedas, the 4 Vedangas, 6 Vedangas, I'm sorry, Mimamsa, philosophy, Nyaya, Dharma Shastras that are 20, and then Puranas that are 1, that should have been. And then we have what is called 4 Upavedas. These are what are taught in Gurukula, actually. Ayurveda, Gandharva Veda, Dhanur Veda, and Sthapatya Veda. Medicine, music, dance, military science, fine arts, like that. This is actually meant to be the curriculum, the standard curriculum for standard education. And we have yet to introduce this, actually, within our society, largely because we have yet to really understand the need and the importance to introduce VARNASRAMA, you see. And then also, we know there are 64 arts and sciences over and above this. The science of politics, we can find this in such books as the Kautidya Arthashastra, Viduraniti, Dhanurveda, Chanakyaniti, and other books as well. And it's focused on 3 things. Number 1, what is called Raksha, protection. Protection of land, protection of citizens. Not only citizens means not only humans, but also animals. They're also citizens. And the protection of dharma. At different levels, protection. Number 2, palana means administration. How to organize society. Administration also has to do with law enforcement, isn't it? Law and order within society. And number 3, yoga kshema, welfare. How to provide in times of difficulties, because we are here in the material world. These are the 3 main areas for Kshatriyas. And the science of economics is nicely summarized in the following. Krishi Goraksha Vanijam, which is what we find in the Bhagavad Gita. So agriculture. Agriculture is meant to be the main activity. Prabhupada explains in the 7th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, main activity actually for the majority of householders. No comments. And agriculture is meant to go hand in hand with cow protection. And then trade related to Krishi and Goraksha. Not plastic toys or whatever, you know. So many kinds of trade. Trade is because there's a basic principle in the Vedic culture that one should grow what one needs, produce only what you need, and use only what you produce. This, yeah, we're very far, very far from that standard. So here's something interesting. This was an introduction written by Hare Krishna Dasi some years back. She came out with a wonderful book that's still available, but kind of rare now, called Speaking About Varnasrama. And there was a whole study group actually initiated by the GBC body many years ago, actually during Prabhupada's centennial, 1996. Wow, 1996, 20 years ago. And she mentions nicely here how we'll see Prabhupada explain the role of city temples, right? Here we are in the city of Seattle. City temples as staging grounds for organizing Varnashram communities. You can think about that. Curriculum for cities. Finally, Maharaj is coming to the point. My God. What to do? You know, I'm not going to go into so much of details. I prepared this long time back, and but it gives some basic general guidelines. Because one thing I would like to, you know, recommend. Recommend means congratulate, and commend. Yeah, the devotees here and the direction, because you have a lot of emphasis, a lot of good emphasis on, you know, different courses and education is very, very important. As I mentioned before, Prabhupada explained how our society is meant to be an educational society. So giving, as you're doing, I saw on the bulletin board all kinds of courses that are being given. That's just very good. And definitely I want to encourage the devotees to continue doing that and even expand into what is called VARNASRAMA College. So at present, within our ISKCON society, the curriculum, Jai Shri Sri Gaurnitai ki, Jai Shri Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. The kind of educational programs we have are, you know, Vaishnav Institute for Higher Education, Mayapur Institute, MI, and others. So it's very important to add courses relating to a Varnasrama college that will help to introduce the culture of beyond Brahmana, let's say Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. One, you know, in addition to introducing many kinds of courses here in the cities, one of the things is that we should also explain to our devotees in the cities the role and the importance of villages. And we'll be covering a little bit of the curriculum taught in the villages. Some of that needs to be also introduced in our cities. In other words, if we know that we are preparing individuals to live in a more natural, then we will introduce different skills that will be relating to that. Visiting rural projects is also part of it. Developing community gardens. Nowadays it's becoming more and more popular. Now the term, what is it? Urban farming has been introduced. Urban farming, and just yesterday I was in San Jose, and they're introducing, what is it? Our city forests, planting trees. You know, there's a non-profit that goes around planting trees in the city, which is nice, which is good. Uvaca and such like Vedic cities were full of green and ongoing discussions, seminars to create awareness, etc. like that. Many of the subject matters that can be introduced in the cities are connected with what we presented a little bit earlier in terms of the different, let's say 14 books of knowledge, etc., for which when we start to go into those, there's all kinds of detail or information. Villages as living bases, that's something important. Our cities primarily, Prabhupada saw them as opportunities for preaching, for introducing Krishna consciousness. So there are two things, our living basis and our preaching basis. Cities are meant to be our preaching basis. country is meant to be our living basis. And we have a long way to go because most of us are not doing that. And but the point is that if we read and understand Prabhupada's instructions on this, we will slowly, gradually begin to understand. Villages, well, this is just explaining the fact that Prabhupada very often quotes Gandhi, who was very nicely understanding the importance of village. Prabhupada speaks of village organization, quoting Gandhi in many different ways. And this is what, especially, of course, not only for villages. Varnashram College is also for the cities. Varnashram College is also for those who are in our cities and those who are in the country as well. This is what I was mentioning a little earlier between formal, non-formal, and informal education. Yeah. In the Varnashram society, the vast majority of students will receive education through non-formal and informal education, which means that most students will not need to attend formal school. We're a long way from that, of course. So how to apply, nice, we have the nicest, the most complete and perfect philosophy. How to apply that philosophy, that's where it is not always so easy. So an important principle is knowing about time, place, and circumstance, isn't it? We cannot it cannot be the same everywhere. It will depend on a number of factors. Leadership within our society is also an important factor. Leaders can help by promoting the ideals towards establishing a Varnashram culture, working towards a more balanced and harmonized material and spiritual reality of life. So here in Seattle, because that emphasis is there, so you're going in the right direction in that respect. And then it's a matter of, we were discussing how, what is very important actually for education to be introduced at different levels is to have some qualified brahmanas who are well-versed, who are knowledgeable in various areas of knowledge and can therefore present curriculum that will be addressed or directed towards different sections of society, different devotees, according to their natures, etc. Yeah. So, yeah, that covers in a nutshell, again, the importance of some basic principles and the need for us within ISKCON society to go, Prabhupada gave the emphasis in the beginning, we need a class of brahmanas. But Srila Prabhupada wanted not only that we gear our efforts and our different courses for brahmanas, but also for other sections of society. That means, as some of the quotes that we brought up indicate, that means also for Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, as well as Shudras within society. We have a little bit of time, as we normally do, for any comments or questions, because it's 10 to 9, and if there's any question, please. Yes.
It was very informative and very different class.
Different class.
Reading to the Bhagavatam, and reading to the Bhagavad Gita, Varnashram topic.
Right.
My question is, you mentioned about the two Sva-Dharmas.
Question about the two Sva-Dharmas, yes.
You mentioned for Varnashram Dharma and Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
In understanding the Varnashram Dharma is just following from your age perspective, like Grihasthashram,
Yeah.
Vanprasthashram,
Very good. Yeah.
And in the Bhagavad Dharma, following Bhakti, are doing Krishna consciousness chanting.
So you're asking basically the difference between the two?
Yeah, is there a weightage given to anyone, or we should follow one or both?
No, we should follow both. See, the question about, this is directly what Prabhupada is explaining about these two levels of Sva-Dharma. You cannot have one without the other. Both are interconnected. So when we speak of spiritual Sva-Dharma, it means especially the level or the aspect of devotional service in terms of the soul. Our soul is meant to gradually become more and more awakened as to, our natural loving relationship within different rasas, for example, with Krishna. The science of devotional service, it's a whole science in itself, the science of spirituality. This is Bhagavad Dharma. So Bhagavad Dharma, in other words, has to do with the spirit soul, primarily. Now, but because we're here in the material world and we have this material body, the other science is on the level of the body. VARNASRAMA Dharma actually is a material science, primarily. And it has to do with the science of Prakriti, material nature. What is material nature? So material nature, we know, is made up of the three modes of material nature, and how we are, when we are devoid of understanding, spiritual understanding, we are totally conditioned by these three modes of material nature. And even when we begin to have spiritual understanding, this material nature is so powerful, as devotees in the beginning stage, it takes us a long time to not be influenced by the lower modes of material nature. But our goal, at least we know that our goal is to rise above these modes of material nature and to at least become situated in the mode of goodness, for example, isn't it? And then, of course, beyond. So, in the context of VARNASRAMA Dharma, the system that Krishna has created and the education he has given also within that system is meant to facilitate our spiritual growth or spiritual emancipation. So this is a very important point actually, the way we live materially. If we live in an atmosphere that is very sattvic, villages are primarily, used to be, maybe much less now, because the whole rajasic atmosphere has also infiltrated, isn't it, in the villages because of television, newspapers, so many things. So traditionally, villages are the ideal place and atmosphere where we can be more in harmony with Krishna's nature, where we can also understand our connection with Mother Cow, because that's something we didn't really touch on very much here, but it is a very fundamental and essential component. Our Vedic culture actually is based on this principle of Mother Cow being absolutely essential for Brahminical culture to be established. Brahminical culture, Prabhupada explains, cannot be established without cows being present, without cows being protected, without the various ingredients, natural ingredients, that nowadays we are not using or not having to a large extent. Ghee, for example. Ghee is so important for, Brahmanas cannot do their activities unless they have ghee. They cannot do any yajna. They cannot install any deities. They cannot give initiation without yajna. And ghee is essential. Ghee and grains, isn't it? So, so in this way, Bhagavad Dharma is that material arrangement, we could say, that Krishna himself has created and that Krishna himself was demonstrating when Krishna was present 5,000 years ago and performing his, Vrindavan Leela. He was showing us, and this is directly what Prabhupada is trying to explain to us, that Krishna purposefully came and appeared in Vrindavan to show us what is the norm and the standard of life. That norm and standard of life for the vast majority of people. Because traditionally, who was the main person in Mathura? Kamsa. Kamsa, when we think of the big cities, traditionally, cities are places where Kshatriyas, they rule. Previously, they had like palaces or forts, that became eventually like cities. Of course, not only Kshatriyas were there, but that was how they were administrating the country and the affairs of the state, isn't it? And of course, there were people who were assisting them. Some brahmanas were there also. Some of the ministers were brahmanas. And as well, they had, Krishna in Dwarka also has cows. Cows are close by because every day they have to eat. So they use products, cow products, etc. And so many different arts and crafts and whatnot were also there. But the majority of people, if we look in the Vedic culture, actually we just need to go to a place like Cambodia, for example, where even today, maybe 90% of the population are still in the villages. So traditionally, there were few cities, and they were to administer, different parts of the kingdom, so to speak. But now, and it means that the majority of people were living a very simple life, and they were connected with farming was the main occupation. And farming, as we read a few minutes ago, was the main economy and is meant to be the main economy. Farming, agriculture is the most sustainable and scientific economy. And that's why those who were trained as Kshatriyas, as leaders, they knew this, and therefore they gave their full support to people. They would make the land available. They didn't have to buy land. Buying land is actually against Vedic culture. Selling of land, selling of cows, this is not Vedic. You see, selling of knowledge, as we are doing in our universities and colleges, this is adharma. This is adharma, based on principles of dharma, of adharma. So one of the points I'm making is very essential, is that we need to come back to basic concepts. We need to understand what are the basic concepts. For us as devotees, one of the most fundamental concepts is that we are spirit souls. The most important instruction Prabhupada has given to all of us. We're not this body, we're a spirit soul, and the goal of life is to become self-realized, isn't it? So that's why, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. But today we have taken out the dharma and taken out the moksha, and we are just running after artha and kama. That's it, modern society, isn't it? So we don't have the right formula, and therefore we have so many complications. And therefore we, as members of this, society created by Srila Prabhupada, have this great responsibility to gradually introduce. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is through education. And by training individuals, our own devotees, in different areas, different fields of knowledge, etc. Yeah. Any other? Yes.
Thank you very much for the
Mike. Oh, Hari Vilas. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I thank you for having such a nice presentation of the VARNASRAMA College and VARNASRAMA life. We wrote a booklet called Ancient Vedic Wisdom for Modern Sustainability for our festival, Ananda Mela. And in there, we quoted a letter from Srila Prabhupada where he says, this is a letter he wrote in 1968 to Hayagriva Das when he was in Montreal, Quebec. And he says, Vrindavan does not require to be modernized because Krishna's Vrindavan is a transcendental village. They completely depend on nature's beauty and nature's protection. The community in which Krishna preferred to belong was Vaishya community because Nanda Maharaj happened to be a Vaishya king or landholder, and his main business was cow protection. It is understood that he had 900,000 cows, and Krishna and Balaram used to take charge of them, along with his many cowherd boyfriends, and every day in the morning he used to go out with his friends and cows into the pasturing grounds. So if you seriously want to convert this new spot as New Vrindavan, I shall advise you not to make it very much modernized. But as you are American boys, you must make it just suitable to your minimum needs, not to make it too much luxurious, as generally Europeans and Americans are accustomed. Better to live there without modern amenities, but to live a natural, healthy life for executing Krishna consciousness. It may be an ideal village where the residents will have plain living and high thinking. For plain living, we must have sufficient land for raising crops and pasturing grounds for the cows. If there is sufficient grains and production of milk, then the whole economic problem is solved. You do not require any machines, cinema, hotel, slaughterhouses, brothels, nightclubs, all these modern amenities. People in the spell of Maya are trying to squeeze out gross pleasure from the senses, which is not possible to derive to our heart's content. Therefore, we are confused and baffled in our attempt to acquire eternal pleasure from gross matter. Actually, joyful life is on the spiritual platform. Therefore, we should try to save our valuable time from material activities and engage them for Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, because we have to keep our body and soul together to execute our mission, we must have sufficient, not extravagant, food to eat, and that will be supplied by grains, fruits, and milk. So if you can develop this place to that ideal life, and the residents become ideal Krishna conscious men in that part of your country, I think not only many philosophically minded people will be attracted, but they will be benefited also. The difficulty is that people in this country, they want to continue their practice of sense gratification, and at the same time they want to become transcendentally advanced. This is quite contradictory. One can advance in transcendental life by process of negating the general practice of materialistic life. The exact adjustment is in Vaishnava philosophy, which is called Yukta Vairagya, which means that we should simply accept the bare necessities of our material part of life and try to save time for spiritual advancement. This should be the motto of New Vrindavan. If you at all develop it to the perfectional stage, and I am always at your service to help you by practical suggestion and assistance also. For the time being, if you actually want to develop such ideal ashrama, we must have sufficient land, and all other things will gradually grow. For raising crops from the land, how many men will be required? That we must estimate. And for herding the cows and feeding them, we must have sufficient pasturing ground to feed the animals all around. We have to maintain the animals throughout their life. We must not make any program for selling them to the slaughterhouses. That is the way of cow protection. Krishna, by his practical example, taught us to give all protection to the cows, and that should be the main business of New Vrindavan. Vrindavan is also known as Gokula. Go means cows. Kula means congregation. Therefore, the special feature of New Vrindavan will be cow protection, and by doing so, we shall not be loser. In India, of course, a cow is protected, and the cowherd men, they derive sufficient profit by such protection. Cow dung is used as fuel. Cow dung dried in the sunshine, kept in stock for utilizing them as fuel in the villages. They get wheat and other cereals produced from the field. There is milk and vegetables, and the fuel is cow dung, and thus they are self-independent in every village. There are hand weavers for the cloth, and the country oil mill consisting of a bull walking in a circle around two big grinding stones attached with yoke grinds the oil seeds into oil. The whole idea is that people residing in New Vrindavan may not have to search out work outside. Arrangements should be such that the residents should be self-satisfied. That will make an ideal ashrama. I do not know how these ideals can be given practical shape, but I think like that. I think that is possible, that people may be happy in any place with land and cow without endeavoring for so-called amenities of modern life, which simply increase anxieties for maintenance and proper equipment. The less we are anxious for maintaining our body and soul together, the more we become favorable for advancing in Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare, Hare Krishna.
So the problem that we have is that we are all sinning every day. Driving a car, walking down the street, breathing, eating, we're killing millions of living entities. If we're not practicing Krishna consciousness seriously, we get reactions from all that killing. And the number one reaction is we become attracted to material life. That's a direct result of killing unconsciously so many living entities, and consciously. When we become attracted to material life, we become convinced that I am this body, and the goal of life is sensual pleasures. Then we think that I should work very hard to get money, and with the money buy so many different material facilities, cell phones and cars and this and that, and it increases and increases, and the more it increases, the more we become attached to those things, and then we get caught in the Maya Jal, the net of Maya, and it's impossible to get out unless one actually meets a genuine devotee and is instructed in spiritual life. So the problem is, even though Prabhupada gave all these instructions, our leaders are not following them. And instead of, every time they try and make a spiritual community, it ends up becoming like a outpost of Amazon.com or Microsoft or something like that. So we have to be determined to live a simple living, high thinking. And that means we have to minimize our material needs and maximize our spiritual engagement. And there's a transitional period where that takes place. And unless our leaders emphasize that, it won't happen, because the material energy is too strong for people to individually resist the temptation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We are caught in the world wide web of Maya. www. Whatever. So I would like to thank you very much for hearing us out, and I'd like to thank again the devotees here for being involved in conducting many educational activities. Education is of foremost importance, and yeah, we should be hearing such purports as we just heard from Harivilas Prabhu. It's all actually in Prabhupada's books. Prabhupada one time mentioned, my devotees, my disciples are very nice, but I have one complaint: they don't read my books enough. They like to distribute my books, but they don't read my books. So, yeah, it's all there in Prabhupada's books. We simply need to be more attentive in reading those books and hearing, and praying to Prabhupada and to Krishna how to apply isn't it? We have this perfect philosophy, wonderful philosophy, based on perfect jnanam, knowledge, but we are lacking in vijnanam, applied knowledge, how to apply that philosophy. And the world actually will begin to look up towards this Krishna consciousness when we will be able to demonstrate. So we should pray to Srila Prabhupada, especially this year of ISKCON'S Golden Jubilee, to help us move more in that direction. It's getting on the late side, so thank you all very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Samasta Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Pimanandi.